Tree debris everywhere. Piece of tree. Do we have any trees on the right side? Yes, we do. Little ones, little ones. Get it, mate. Whoa, whoa. Alright, go ahead.
Guys, you're seeing part of the video that you're seeing. This is part. Welcome everyone to another exciting edition of Random Topic Thursdays. This is part of the aftermath of a hurricane as it arrived at Siesta, Florida. That's right around Sarasota, Siesta Point. Siesta Key is what it's called, Siesta Key, Florida. That's right not far from Sarasota. They have been landfall as a Category 3 storm. They're reporting that it was not as severe as they thought, but you can obviously see the damages that the hurricane has brought to flood and so forth. Winds, tornadoes affected with it. That's one of the streets that's been in Florida. Of course, Florida, that area has already been impacted by another hurricane previous to that. That was Hurricane Helene. Make sure we smash up the lights. Power lines are down. Yeah, that's all part of that.
Unfortunately, it looks like the bay is meeting the Gulf a bit early. We can walk to the other side of the building and get another look from here. All the debris that was never picked up, look at our piles. It's coming
Mm. Mm. Now, this is all different parts of Florida. Excuse me. What's going on, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. We're going live in here. Let's talk. Let's talk. And y'all forgive me. I got gum in my mouth, piece of mint in my mouth. I didn't expect it to be that hard. No, we saw the aftermath of Hurricane Milton, which is what we're talking about. There were a lot of people, and of course, Milton made landfall on yesterday, as I stated, it struck Siesta Key Point, Siesta Key, Florida, which is around the Sarasota area, went through the middle of Florida, and actually is now out in the Gulf. So as it went on land, which typically happens with most hurricanes, it weakens. I'm praying for everybody. I'm glad, just from what I've seen preliminary, they said it didn't impact. It impacted the state, obviously, but not as bad as some people had expected it would be. They've had people, and this is an AI creation. I saw this photograph, but I don't know if y'all been seeing this. This was a photo from Walt Disney, supposedly of Walt Disney, but if you see right here, they say no, Hurricane Milton did not flood Disney World in Florida. So these are AI generated images. Yeah, it didn't really become Splash Mountain, and actually Disney is set to reopen on Friday. That's how quick it's gone. That they're back on track. Friday they're going to reopen. Not although those prices are going up. Not that I know if anybody's going to Disney World, but yeah, they reported that, and I saw that going viral. But there are some other photographs I've seen. Of course, what you saw in the thumbnail, that is an actual picture. Hold on, I'll put it up for you. That is actually a picture of Hurricane Milton in space, from space. Hurricane Milton obviously didn't go to space, but from the International Space Station, they took a picture of it, and that is an actual picture of Hurricane Milton as it was passing over the Gulf of this ISS was passing over the Gulf of Mexico. They took a picture of this, and you can see how big this storm is.
Developing tonight, Hurricane Milton has made landfall along Florida's Gulf Coast, just south of Sarasota, as a Category 3 storm with maximum sustained winds of 120.
I wasn't trying to play that, but this is the video from space. Incredible images you can see right there. How big that stuff is. And you notice you can barely see the eye. If you can't see the eye of a storm, a hurricane on screen, if it's very tiny, that means it's incredibly strong. You don't want to be anywhere near that. And there were a lot of people, for all intents and purposes, a lot of people that did stay. I know of a few who did stay in Florida at that time. They didn't evacuate. My friend, I had a friend of mine who had, I think, some cousins or family that was staying out. And I got to say this because I actually was, yeah, Milton was big. Katrina was even bigger. Camille was, Hurricane Camille actually is one of the strongest storms, one of the strongest storms on record. Yeah. But yeah, Milton was pretty, yeah, it was a Cat 5, but when it got closer to the land, which typically happens, it started to weaken a little bit. But still, you don't want to be in Eddie Storm. But a lot of people stayed. And as I was stating, I had a friend of mine, Catalia, and I'll tell this to everybody. He stated that he had told some friends of his to get out, some friends, and they chose not to stay. Why? The elder wanted to stay put. Now, I love my elderly, but a lot of them get in the way. Let's be real. I gotta be real honest. A lot of them get in the way of progress at times and like to control stuff. A lot of the elderly don't like to give up power. And a lot of them like to have say about their, with regards to their family and their safety. And I'm gonna say this. If you don't want to leave there, it's one thing if you don't have money to leave during a hurricane. I get there's some people that don't have finances, they're worried, they don't have places to go, like hotels and so forth. I get that. That happened with Katrina. But damn it, if the mayor of that town, like that mayor a couple of days ago, who issued the evacuation order and told them flat out, you stay here, you're not going to make it. It's safe to just get in the freaking car and drive. It's safe to say just get in the car and drive, damn it. You ain't got no wants. Like we got to do with the elders. If you got an elderly parent that don't want to leave during an evacuation order, and it's a category 5 storm headed your way, dump them. Or tie their ass up and drag them, put them on top of the car. We going. You're gonna be like You're gonna be like Granny in the Beverly Hillbillies. We're gonna tape. You don't want to get out of your chair. We're gonna take the chair and tie it to the car. That's how you gotta be. They always want to fight. Yes, they want to fight. But I can safely say, when we evacuated for hurricanes and so forth, my grandfather, God bless his soul, he lived to be 96. Whenever there was a hurricane, he hopped on with us. There was no, I want to stay and fight this, because he was a dialysis patient. He was, he had, was elderly, couldn't take care of himself. And I know him, he didn't want to be it's not just the fact, and this is in Baton Rouge, he didn't want to be stuck in no hot tin can like an apartment we were staying in for a week or longer, because if your power goes out, it can take a while for Energy or Clico, whoever. Well, we have Energy here in this area, but for them to fix the power can take time. So you never want to be in a situation like that, especially your elderly. You don't know when it's coming back. Flooding is another thing. If there's a storm surge coming and a storm surge is 15 feet or more, you got to be able to, and even if you say your house is elevated, let's say it's 4 feet off the ground, well, 8 feet of water is still going to hurt you. You got to be able to get out and get on the roof, be able to cut through the attic. You're going to need all your supplies. So it's not worth it. You want to hold on to stuff. That's not worth it. That's what insurance is for. Some stuff, my mom, with Hurricane Katrina, I remember when she packed up all of our pictures, all our videos from when she was from when we were younger, and she did that because she lived through Hurricane Betsy, so she had all those memories, because all of her baby pictures, everything that they had was destroyed in Betsy, and she didn't want us, especially as kids, to go through that. So mom was smart. I packed up I remember packing up all of my clothes, but also I was 19 at the time. I packed up my Xbox. I included a lot of shit. Nobody thought was going to be nobody of course thought Katrina was going to be what it was, because we've evacuated for storms before and they end up turning away. But yeah, it was bad. But yeah, I'm praying for everybody with Milton. Now this is actually a photograph. Yeah, the storm ripped off the baseball stadium, the roof of the baseball stadium. This is actually a picture. Hold on. This is a video from a tornado that struck the area. This is another reason you don't want to stay. That's in Fort Pierce, Florida. So that was yesterday. That's the tornado there. That almost looks like a cow. That's like Twister, but look at that. Trees, power lines.
Mr. Secretary, this is Kayla Tauchi.
I just clicked on this. This came up. So this is from Forbes. So Kara Jean Pierre, is holding a press conference, and someone's going to ask if FEMA and DHS have enough for resources. So this is a good way to segue. Now, this is my first time seeing this video, but this is a good way to segue into our main topic, because I called it Hurricane Blame, the aftermath and politics of Hurricane Milton. Now, I'm just turning this in for this time. I haven't seen this video before, and fair use, by the way, but I have something that I think would pique your interest. I'm glad Mr. Mayorkas is appearing in this video, because this was according to the New York. I got an article from the New York Post. I'm going to share with y'all in a minute, but let's put this video.
From CNN, President Biden indicated that FEMA and the Department of Defense would have enough money to get through their immediate needs in this recovery phase. I'm wondering, after your early assessments of the damage from Hurricane Milton, now coupled with the damage from Hurricane Helene, do you still believe that to be the case?
Yes, I do. We have the resources to respond to the immediate needs of individuals impacted by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, and the associated, it's very important to remember, the tornadoes associated with the hurricane. That being said, we will need additional funds, and we implore Congress, when it returns, to in fact fund FEMA as is needed.
If I could, just a quick follow-up. You said on CNN yesterday that some of the misinformation that had been perpetuated around these storms was already beginning to have an impact on individuals either applying or deciding not to apply for government relief. Can you elaborate on what exactly you're seeing and what exactly you determined to be the cause of that?
So let me repeat that in fact, the false information that is being spread deliberately does have a real life impact on survivors. And it is also.
What is the false information? That's the question I need to know. What false information? Because earlier last week, didn't he say that they didn't have enough funds to last through hurricane season? And now he says today that they have money and resources needed for those impacted by Helene and Milton.
Demoralizing for those heroic individuals who are risking their lives in the service of others. Let me give you one example. There is false information that federal employees who are there to help people will actually take their land. And what we have seen is people reluctant to access the relief to which they are entitled and which will help them because of the fear that false information has instilled in them.
Okay, we'll just stop. FEMA, you suck. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. I don't even have to present information. Anytime you're dealing with FEMA and the government, they suck. All right, it sucks. I know so from experience, because everything, first off, they drag their feet. It takes time. And, as far as qualifications, I can tell you when I tried to apply for aid with Hurricane Ida, I was not able to get that. And they did that because they only limited to people in your household. I believe the people whose names are on the actual deed of a house or apartment. So anybody living in there, if you didn't pay rent, if you weren't there, you didn't have any say. So it wasn't like everybody was getting money. That's not how it is. Now, I get you have to have resources. And yes, some people, there are some who are less fortunate that deserve it more than others. I get they can't just give everything to sometimes everything to everybody. I'm not talking about charity, but there have been people who have been denied the $750, but that's not what I want to show you all. I want to show you this. This is actually an article. Now, I don't care for the New York Compost that much. However, they do come with some viable information from time to time. And what they announced here is that a watchdog group had found that more than $7 billion was untapped in FEMA funds. Now, they quoted they quoted Mayorkas from last week when he said we're expecting another hurricane hitting. Quote, we do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season and what is imminent. However, an inspector general's report from August, and we're going to go to the report in a second, found that $7 billion remains in emergency funding that could be used for natural disasters. Now, what they go say further, it goes on. So a inspector by the name of Joseph Kofari, he's the DHS Inspector General, found in his August 14th report that as of, I'm sorry, I keep getting these notifications. He says that as of October 20th, 2022, FEMA had $8.3 billion in unliquidated funds meant to relieve declared disasters from 2012 or earlier. More than $7 billion of that could potentially be returned to the Disaster Relief Fund, the report notes, referring to FEMA's dedicated fund for natural calamities. So far, the feds have just paid $4 million to Americans hit by Helene and the Southeast, providing up to $750 in immediate aid for individuals to help cover the cost of groceries and emergency supplies. The storm has killed at least 232 people and caused more than $47.5 billion in devastation. It took 1 week for some of the county mayors in my home state to even get a phone call from FEMA, and Kamala Harris has the nerve to announce a dire humanitarian situation in another country. Senator Marsha Blackburn, I'm sure she's a Republican, referencing the VP's announcement of $157 million in U.S. aid to Lebanon over the weekend. It's funny how they can actually have money for all of these foreign nations, for these other groups. Migrants can get aid. They can get debit cards. They can get food stamp cards to purchase clothes and food. They can also got them sheltered up in hotels in New York, where Eric Adams is. Did y'all know they actually had a high school gym was used to shelter? And this was during the school year. I reported this last month. I reported on it a couple of months ago. Excuse me. They've had a lot of people get on. See, when Hurricane Katrina hit, a lot of people couldn't tell how evil. Well, people could see how bad FEMA was just from listening to CNN and NBC and ABC and hearing the stories. But now people have this. People have a phone. So now that you have a phone, you can be able to record and document stuff that mainstream media, or I should say lamestream media, is going to ignore. A lot of people have said, yes, it's insulting. So John Pierre, the White House press secretary, accused Fox News correspondent Peter Dookie of pushing disinformation, misinformation by asking specifically about the Lebanon funding in the context of the disaster. President Biden is fond of saying, "Show your budget and I will tell you what value," Dookie said. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? That's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation. Jean-Pierre cited more than $200 million in allocated disaster relief funding and claimed it had not been exhausted yet by individuals applying for the aid, but said the president nonetheless was asking for more funding from Congress. Now, we're going to get to that in a second. So this is the politics behind all of this, but y'all do know FEMA is a part of the executive branch of government. In fact, as I stated before, it was created by Jimmy Carter, and they, of course, have a head of FEMA. It's been allocated now to Homeland Security, which I was critical of 20 years ago. I still am now, because now you have, first of all, they have in a way militarized, let's just call it, disaster relief. And they did that with Katrina. Now I don't know if any troops or anyone are on the ground right now in Florida. That's not what I'm talking about. But they can run FEMA basically can run itself. Now, I did a whole story, especially when I did my video on the Katrina anniversary. You can all go by and purchase that book. I'll have a link in my channel where you can all buy it and get the information on Hurricane Katrina. There are over 200 references, or better, that I had, documenting how bad FEMA was, what they were up to. I quoted directly from there the lines and what they were up to, how they basically took over areas. They cut emergency lines during a hurricane. That was complained of by the Jefferson Parish President, Aaron Broussard. A lot of people were very critical of it. Remember, Brownie, you're doing a good job. And remember the president, there was a video of George W. Bush, who was actually there, was being briefed, knew how bad Katrina was going to be, but did nothing. Absolutely did nothing. There was actually a naval ship parked outside the convention center. They did not, during that time when it was getting bad in the convention center and the Superdome, they did absolutely nothing. Now, they go on and say the Biden-Harris administration shelled out $1.4 billion from separate funds, the Emergency Food and Shelter Program and the Shelter and Service Program, to state and local governments, as well as non-governmental groups helping migrants settle in the U.S. Republicans have argued that the funds should be redirected to help with the federal response to Hurricane Helene, but Mayorkas' office responded that his agency could not do so since Congress did not authorize the move. Now, Congress, of course, yes, they can set a budget. They have budgetary committees. However, FEMA is still part of that executive branch. Could not the president, of course, the executive branch doesn't have an office, I guess, directing funding, but he can sign executive orders with the stroke of his pen and create a law if he wanted to, ordering more money for FEMA. They can do an emergency with Congress right now, a special session, to get more money sent to American citizens. They have the power to do that. So there's been a lot of this. So in total, Congress approved more than $30 billion for FEMA in fiscal year 2024, according to the 5 senators. The senators they listed included Tom Tillis. They also have Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, James Lankford, Ron Johnson, and Roger Marshall. I don't know if they're talking about Mr. Tillis, whoever they, but they actually got 6 here. So they don't indicate, but I'm assuming it's these 5 here. And you know, there's a lot of political grandstanding going on with this. Now, I want to show you everybody a video. Of course, now when I talk about the storm and the politicizing, you all know that DeSantis and Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, and Vice President Kamala Harris have been going back and forth because NBC put a report out that DeSantis was not answering Kamala Harris's phone calls at all, saying she tried to reach out to him and he's refused to do so. And DeSantis fired back. DeSantis is saying, you know, I didn't even know she tried to call me. And like, this is political he's basically accusing her of political grandstanding for the election because she kind of from looking at the video, she was kind of used that. But he said he's been in touch with the White House. Now, and Joe Biden has praised him. Now, I'm going to play that video. But this is where you can look at FEMA's oversight, because I said I was going to post it. And this is it here. This is the audit. So you see it right here on the second page. Hold on. I don't like DeSatan. I call him DeSatan. I don't like DeSantis. I don't like DeSantis at all. But I don't like Vice President Harris either. And I don't think he's lying about that, because the vice president, if we're talking about chain of command, it's funny when we talked about the border and migrants, you have Democrats who say she can't do anything about the border. She's not the border's order. There's a chain of command. A vice president, you know, D.L. Hughley would say the vice presidency, that's that job, you know, that's an office job. You're there to do what the president says, as if they have no power. Meanwhile, she's the president pro temp of the Senate. But nevertheless, it says here, this is from the audit, that they found 79 disaster declarations and identified 26 programs with nearly 9.4 million in unliquidated funds that remained open beyond their approved periods of performances. These programs included public assistance, individual assistance, and hazard mitigation grant programs that were awarded in 2012 or earlier. Additionally, I'm skipping through it. FEMA extended 41 program periods of performance or closeout liquidation periods without detailed document justification as required. These programs represent more than $7 billion in unliquidated funds that could potentially be returned to the Disaster Relief Fund. These extensions delayed project closures by up to 16 years, which in some cases resulted in time expended for administrative requirements equaling or exceeding the recipient's time to perform actual repair or construction work. So this is from the Office of Inspector General from the Department of Homeland Security, signed by Joseph Kafari. And yet we're saying, FEMA is saying, Mayorkas is saying they're broke. This is your government at work, people. Catalia, he actually took out well, whether you go debate how good he is, he's not a good governor to me. He actually took out slavery in public schools. I didn't care for that. Now, yeah, he's buddy with Trump. And he's trying to get stuff for his state, which every governor, any governor will try and do. You don't try to play politics with stuff. Even Kathleen Blanco, who was governor of Louisiana at the time of Katrina, she did a poor job with trying to play politics with stuff with Bush. But then again, I think George Bush was the worst president in history. Now, I put the link there. So when I talk about political grandstanding during Hurricane Milton, I want to show everybody some video. So what we got, of course, Vice President Harris had accused Ron DeSantis of not taking her calls. She tried to call him during the storm. He's responded. I'm going to play both of these videos. So I want everybody to see this. So this is what we're talking about. Hold on. Why is this thing? And Biden respond. I'm gonna show that to somebody's before I forget. But yeah, here's the video. So NBC report. I don't think it's an NBC reporter that came up to Vice President Harris, but when she was walking, I think she was out in the on the tarmac by Air Force Two, and they reported this. So this is what happened. Hold on.
On hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Madam Vice President, Milton's arrival, what does it mean for resources?
Now, you heard that. So she's complaining that DeSantis is putting his politics first instead of the people. Now, DeSantis is going to respond because he fired back at her claim. Now, let me stop. So he fires back. All right, hold on. I don't know why this is doing this. Okay. I was having trouble. I had located it, but he's on Fox News, of course. They're going to throw him a bone. But is there any truth to what he's saying? So listen carefully.
She's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign. I have zero time to entertain these political games. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to prepare and respond to what may be one of the most damaging storms in the history of the United States. So she says focusing on protecting your people is selfish. I think she ought to look in the mirror.
So he calls her selfish. He even said she didn't even know she, I should say, had been calling him. Now, he has, and now he gets support from someone who throws his vice president under the bus, none other than the president himself, Joe Biden. So Biden responded. This is another video. So we're going to hear this from DeSantis at a press conference. Fair use. Hold on.
To the threat that it poses to the state, but particularly to that region.
A White House spokesperson said that you turned down calls from both Biden and Harris. Are you saying you're not aware of that? And if so, how are you not aware of that?
So Biden called me a couple days ago with Helene when I was on the helicopter. I didn't have any issues. They had helped us with what we've done. I'm not aware that he's tried to call since then. Certainly hasn't called my phone. So I don't know quite where they're getting that information. At the same time, we got the approvals that we need. If there's something else that we need, I'll hop on the phone very quickly, whether that's a FEMA administrator or the president, and we will press the case to be able to get approvals for what we need in Florida. But we have gotten approvals for everything that we've asked for.
In this area?
As far as Harris and you go.
I didn't know that she had called, so I'm not sure who they called. They didn't call me, and their characterization of it was something that they did. It wasn't anything that anybody in my office did in terms of saying that it was political.
Given the severity of the storm, since I did want to ask you about politics right now in terms of should.
I don't really want to answer questions about this. Is not a time for politics. No, excuse me, Gary. You and your publication will twist anything that's done to try to make a political agenda. That's what you do. That's how you get your clicks. I understand that. I understand that's the business model. Well, but I don't want to talk about politics because, but I have a feeling that however you do, you guys will find a way to frame it. That's just your shtick. I get it. It's fine. But I don't want to participate in it. We have had to respond to a Category 4 hurricane. We've had to prepare and now respond to something that may hit as a major hurricane, may be Category 4, may even be bigger than that. We hope that it does, but that should be the focus. And I think some of these questions are trying to create some type of political angle where there's just none there. What we've asked for has been approved. You're not seeing me out there carping or complaining about anything. We have gotten what we need from the feds. We have been working constructively with all the local communities. We have marshaled an incredible amount of resources in the state of Florida to be able to get the job done. And that's just what we're going to continue to do.
So he responded to that. He shut him down. And then you got Biden coming to his aid. So President Biden came to the defense of DeSantis because he was tired of playing the politics over who should call who as well. So look what Joe Biden had to say.
Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation? Why do you think former President Trump has sent testing kits to President Putin during the height of the pandemic? Do you have a comment, sir? Why do you think Trump is
about America?
Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation?
I don't know. I simply don't know. You can speculate, but I just find it. I've used the phrase more than I've used it ever in my whole career. Un-American. It's un-American. It's not who the hell we are. What are they talking about?
Sir, have you considered calling him and asking him to stop doing that? To stop spreading it?
Oh, come on.
Mr. President, does Governor DeSantis need to take Vice President Harris's calls?
Who the hell cares?
All I can tell you is I'm talking to Governor DeSantis. He's been very gracious. He's thanked me for all we've done. He knows what we're doing, and I think that's important.
Who cares? Why are they bringing this stuff up? Does he need to call Vice President Harris? Does he need to speak with her? Hell no. 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 He doesn't have to talk with her. He's talking with the president. So is this something that make it out another? It seems that they're trying to get a campaign going. This is campaigning for Vice President Harris, because from all intents and purposes, what I've heard, she's not been doing that great in the polls lately, especially after her 60 Minutes interview. Just and a lot of people have been saying it's going to be a hard hill for her to climb. I see a lot of people, I know people who are going to vote for Trump. A lot of black men, like Eddie Griffin, one of my favorite comedians of all time. Eddie Griffin has been going hard on her. He calls her Kamala Harris. Eddie don't like her. But why are we even talk? Does he need to talk to her? If he's in communication with the president, that's enough. That's enough. Of course, it seems like they're just reaching for something. Now, of course, politics always plays a role in this stuff. I mean, even with Katrina, even I remember when Nagin told George Bush, he told him, get off your ass and come see what's going down over here. He called out the governor. Yeah, he went hard. I think Nagin really went to jail over that Chocolate City thing. When he said New Orleans was going to be chocolate, because a lot of people that remember that specifically, that was the Martin Luther King Day parade they had in New Orleans. I wasn't there. I remember them hearing about it. I was on Southern's campus watching the story. Yeah, the mayor made that remark because at that time they were trying to put pressure on the mayor with this Bring New Orleans Back commission. It's all in my book, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all can go find it. Katrina Eyes Have Not Seen Is Have Not Heard is on Amazon. And it's available in paperback. I'm going to put the link up in my channel description for everybody to go check that out. But yeah, they were doing that. And yeah, Nagin, I think, ticked a lot of people off by doing that, by making that remark. These are silly gossip questions somebody wrote on YouTube. Yeah, absolutely. Now, make sure y'all are hitting the notification bell. We're going to go ahead and move on to something else. I'm trying to see. I think I was going to have our special guest was going to stop by. I don't know if he's here, if he's available. He said it's going to be difficult. Let me see. Play some music while we got this going on. So give me 1 second for a minute, guys. I'm going to call him and see if he's coming on. All right. So we got to have that music playing. Let's talk about something else. Move on. I think my guest is about to come in a little bit. But let's talk about this. I got to get into this next topic. Make sure y'all are hitting the notification bell when we go live. But yeah, we'll come back to that hurricane blame topic. But yeah, that's some BS. All right. So we have some more exciting Diddy news. Did he do it? Did he do it? Did he didn't? Or did he didn't? Or did he didn't? The diddler. The diddly pickly. The diddly D. Diddly D. Like Kevin D. So earlier today, Diddy actually had appeared in court. His lawyers, they appealed to, I guess, the higher court of, I think this would be the Court of Appeals, to try and get bail, and it's a status conference. Now, they set a trial date. The trial date is set for May of 2025. So Diddy, however, has been denied bail. So that's the latest we have. And his trial date has been set. So we're going to go to Fox News, Fox 5 New York. So y'all gonna hear what happened. Here's a recap of it, all right? So yeah, Diddy, of course, he's been denied bail. He's gonna have to sit like a jailbird singing, waiting for trial. It's a shame, but it's what it is. I think he's still gonna try and get still fighting for bail, but they're locking him in. So hold on.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back inside a federal courtroom
There
here
you
in New
are.
York.
All right, a trial date's now been set for May 5th of next year. Lisa
May of
Evers live in Lower Manhattan
2025.
with the very latest today. Lisa.
Well, Stephen, Natasha, this was Sean Diddy Combs' third time in the courthouse you see right behind me, his first time before a new judge. They did handle these calendar matters and also set that May 5th, 2025 date for the trial to begin. But what was most striking was that his mother, Janice Combs, who's been with him his whole life, flew up from Florida to be with him, as did most of his children, in a show of support.
Now, why is that shocking? She says it was most shocking. That's his mother. He's in jail. He's in jail. He's in federal custody. What makes you think, white woman, his mother wouldn't show up? I forgot. This is why I hate newscast. This is why a lot of people hate reporters, because they act and say the dumbest shit. What makes you think she wouldn't come? Why is that a shock? She ain't publicly denounced him. All last week she was defending him. She called out the women. She called out the court. She said this was a money scheme. She's defending him like any mother would.
Sean Combs' son, Christian, known professionally as King Combs, held his grandmother's hand as they left the courthouse with his other siblings.
We want to hear from you. Anything you want to say at this point.
Judge Arun Subramanian acknowledged that his mother, Janice Combs, came from Florida for her son, and that his kids also traveled to be in the same courtroom with him. Combs' attorney, Anthony Rico, sat by his side throughout the proceeding. He's handling the appeal of his bail denial, which is a separate case in the appeals court.
He's making an adjustment. He had his family here today to support him. We really want to put an end to all of the clowning that we see on the internet. This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences.
The judge set a trial date of May 5th, 2025. The lead federal prosecutor took issue with Combs' attorney Mark Agnefilo's extensive comments in a TMZ documentary, alleging the government was guilty of racial bias and targeting Combs. Agnifilo complained about government leaks to the media. The result was a mutual gag order.
I made a request for the judge to issue what we call the gag order. And the judge is going to issue it on a reciprocal basis. So I'm not going to say anything that I didn't say in my papers and in court.
Women's rights attorney Gloria Allred represents some of the accusers of Combs in civil cases and spoke outside the court.
It's challenging because
here comes this whole Gloria Allred.
For many of them, remembering what they allege he did to them is triggering and traumatizing.
By all intents and purposes, let me just say this about Gloria Allred. She has never been, from what I've heard, she's never even been in court, been in a trial in her life. She doesn't know court procedure, from what I've heard. Now, she's obviously had a law license longer than I have. She's been around for a while. No sane person likes her. No, nobody likes her because she gets these grifters. She digs them up from these celebrities' past, whoever they are, if they even know them, and they sue these celebrities. They go and make a press conference so they can try and get money out of it. She asked for $100 million for the women against Cosby. Let's not forget that.
Now, a date of December 18th was set for the next status conference. For now, Combs is back at MDC. He's been denied bail twice. His last hope of getting out before that May 2025 trial date beginning is for the appeals court to reverse the bail denial, and that could happen anytime within the next couple of weeks. We're live here in front of the courthouse.
I apologize. I said he's got to sit in jail. It was denied. This was a status hearing, so it's different. When you watch, I'm going to tell you why I came up with that. Because you can't believe everything you hear on the internet. You can't believe everything in a thumbnail or from a description. Because I was watching and I saw Willie D. And the way Willie D wrote it, you know, this is clickbait, so I apologize. I got to say this. He made it look like Diddy's bail was denied. This was a status hearing, so he's appealed it. So his bail wasn't denied. So it looks like it was a status conference that set a date. But this is why I thought that. Come on, brother Willie D. Yeah. That's why I was looking at that. Denied bail for the third time. No. It's a status conference, brother. Get some lawyers on your program, man. We could talk about this. Reach out, brother Willie D. So I'm going to finish the video. So a trial date has been set May 5th of 2025. They issue a mutual gag order, which means no one from the state, no one from the defense can talk to, obviously go and make statements to the press like he did with that TMZ documentary. I would have never put, I get that he's defending his client, but I probably would have never have done that. I probably would have even had my own unless I had my own cameras rolling with it, because you know they can go in an edit room and change everything. Look at Michael Jackson.
So let's check in with Teresa Priolo. She's been outside most of the day here. Teresa, what was it like out here?
There were so many people out here. Lisa, as you know, you were out here as well. P. Diddy is an international superstar, and so you have to imagine that this is a case that is bringing people from all over the world. We've seen local media here, national media, and yes, international media too, with also a huge showing among entertainment journalists. But we also saw today a lot of citizen journalists that were out here as well. People who grew up on Diddy's music, whose albums were the soundtrack of their lives, and they just told me that they feel like they needed to come down here and to just catch a glimpse of it all. Of course, we know that Diddy remains behind bars at MDC, but that's not stopping the crowds or the interest in this case.
I'm studying forensic sciences. So, and my big thing is women and children, to protect women and children. So when I heard all of this going down, it was, just the hair on my back just went up.
If he's doing things like this, he needs to be in jail. There's nothing. Diddy needs to go to jail if this is what he's about.
So you might be wondering how the crowds that we saw out here today compared to other high-profile trials like Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe Harvey Weinstein, even Donald Trump. I can tell you, at least from what I saw out here today, this is nothing like what we saw with Donald Trump. But Lisa, I would imagine that as this trial gets closer to its date of May 5th, that we might be seeing some of the crowds like we saw with Ghislaine Maxwell, people lining up really early in the morning, getting their tickets, trying to get inside.
No, Teresa, definitely. This is very early in the whole process. I mean, they just set the trial date today of May 25th, and I think it's going to draw more and more people as we go forward. In fact, the next court date here is December 18th. That will be for the next status conference. But there's a lot of other issues that they have to consider as well in terms of the evidence. The judge gave them until December 31st to deal with all the discovery of the evidence. That means both sides have to have the access to all of the evidence that they have, which is many dozens of terabytes from more than 90 telephones and electronic devices they confiscated during those raids. And then the other thing that was significant about today too, Teresa, was that the prosecutor said in no uncertain terms and quite emphatically, because everything else she was very even-tempered, she said, make no mistake about it, this investigation is still ongoing and we expect to have a superseding indictment, meaning more charges against Diddy. That's the latest here from federal court. Back to you in the studio.
More charges against Diddy in a RICO case, but nothing against any individuals connected with him. Man, a lot of these people don't even know what Diddy did. They go off with the media reports, how they slant stuff. How many of them you think, like the women they were interviewing on the street, actually read the indictment? And that's not to say I think little of women or any of the common folk. I don't. But most Americans don't read the news. They don't read. They look at click headlines. And y'all saw what I did that just now when the Willie D. I'm a victim of it from time to time. I'm guilty of it, I should say. Not all the time, because I research mostly. But sometimes if I see something, I just run with it. Oh, that happened. That's how media gets you. They leave out certain details. So it's not that they just flat out just tell a lie. They leave out critical information. No, of course they didn't. They listened to TMZ. They listened to the news. And this is not coming from me thinking that Diddy is some sweetheart angel. I don't. But do I think when I see Tony Busby, do I think all of this stuff is true? When I read the indictment, and I went over with everybody what my issues with the indictment was, the fact they got Tony Busby and Gloria Allred involved, I'm already thinking my radar, my antennas are already up when I see them. Now, relying on these celebrities, I got to talk about this. Speaking of which, because I said other individuals, how many of y'all last week saw the Jaguar Wright interview with Piers Morgan? Now, Jaguar Wright went on Piers Morgan's program and implicated, she made obviously allegations against Diddy, but not just Diddy, R. Kelly. She mentioned Harvey Weinstein. She called out the Me Too movement, why they weren't talking about it, saying they were fake, which I agree with her on. But then she did something worse. She implicated Sean Carter and Beyonce. Now, Piers Morgan had to apologize to the Carters because of this. So he brought her on. Now, I'm going to explain why that happened, but it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, we have our guests. So right now, I need everybody to rise, all rise. The Honorable Judge Joe Brown presiding. How you doing, Judge?
All right, lawyer, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. We'll see if we get some balloons popping up in a minute.
Yeah, that's strange. And that was everywhere I go, these balloons drift up. I wonder who's doing that. Yeah.
I know who, I have an idea who. I know the company doing it. So yeah, and speaking of which, I don't know too much about it, but I did see a headline that Google was actually, the Department of Justice was actually trying to bring down, it looks like, sanctions against Google for having a monopoly of the search engine. Did you see that?
I saw that. And the search engines are not really accurate. Every now and then I research stuff about myself, which being out there is stuff on me, and Google can't even get that right. Mm-hmm. So the other thing is, when you go into Google a hot topic, check it out, and you will see little stuff in there that says updated 24 hours ago, modified 48 hours ago, and they change it. And there's stuff that you may have gotten off of Google, but you can't find it anymore. So they continually upgrade it to figure stuff out. And I take it in the context of what 60 Minutes did with Kamala Harris, editing out her word salad so she sounded like she had some sense. Same thing when she tried to make the call to Ron DeSantis. She hadn't been involved in hurricanes in the 4 years that her administration, the administration she's part of, has been in office. So now she wants to get in with the campaign benefits, and she even had a gaffe with the open mic too. So it's like DeSantis tells us, you know, we don't need you. We've got it together. You don't know how to do this kind of thing. Your administrative skills are just lacking totally. And I found it interesting that what's this judge that's on Fox News, former TV judge, a woman, she's been a prosecutor too. She calls Kamala Harris just flat out incompetent. She doesn't know how to examine anybody she's brought in for witnesses.
Judge Jeannie?
Yeah, Jeanine, whatever her name is.
Janine?
Yeah,
Janine
Jeanine, whatever it is. I met her one time in New York. We were trying to do some commercials. We were both carried by, what is it, KNBC4 in New York at the time. It was cold, real cold. But it's obvious that Kamala lacks administrative skills. She lacks leadership skills. You can see that by the messes she makes of stuff. And she could have just been out there campaigning, but she tried to interject herself. So one hurricane, what was she doing? She was at a party. Another one, she was drinking with a buddy, and then she lands in North Carolina to campaign, and then after the fact tries to meddle in the business that's already being taken care of down in Florida. And it's the same kind of thing we're talking about here. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And where are you? And it's kind of sort of, why are you talking about the woman so bad? Because she has no character morally. She's not good professionally. And I know what I'm looking at because I've been in this business for a half century, and I know somebody that's been skating and not digging in to do it. And it's kind of crazy. You told me to look into this when you talked to me earlier, so I don't know where we are because I was getting
about DeSantis?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had talked about it earlier, but I'll show it again. Yeah, well, DeSantis and Harris have been going back and forth, but I pointed out that President Biden had actually responded to the reporters, and I have this video. I haven't seen it first, but General Russell Honore, who was in the task force with Katrina. Now, I remember him, but supposedly he disputes her claim. I haven't seen the video. Now, it's CNN. He disputes his claim that Harris has no role in the storm response. So I'm not going to play the whole video, but part of it.
Hold on one second.
For Judge Joe Brown.
Somebody was at the door.
Okay. Well, first, I was talking about that. And when you came on, I was getting into what happened with Diddy, because today he had a status conference. I'm going to get back to the hurricane response. But before I forget, Judge, I want to ask your opinion on this. Jaguar Wright was on Piers Morgan's show and was forced to apologize. Piers Morgan was forced to apologize to Beyonce and Jay Z because Jaguar Wright was accusing Jay Z of being complicit with Diddy and others. And I believe Beyonce and Jay Z's lawyers sent cease and desist letters to Piers Morgan. And I'm not a fan of Piers Morgan, but I wanted to show you, I guess, his apology. And if you could give your legal thoughts, I have mine, but I'd like to hear what you have.
Shocking allegations leveled at Sean Diddy Combs burst the floodgates on salacious claims about an industry many people believe harbored a monster. Understandably, the internet's ablaze with claims about these events and whether other powerful figures were involved too. Well, last week I interviewed Jaguar Wright, a singer-songwriter who's made claims about Diddy for years. Those claims had already received a lot of attention in the media across many platforms for many years. And that's the thing about platforms. The reality of the modern world is that pretty much everyone has a platform as long as there's something to say that other people want to hear. That's why we invite her on to be interviewed. The people making these claims have an audience with or without shows like mine. Well, Jaguar Wright unexpectedly made several serious allegations about Jay Z and Beyonce during that interview. As I said in the moment, they were not present to respond or defend themselves, but now they have. Their lawyers contacted us to say that those claims were totally false and have no basis in fact, and we've therefore complied with the legal request to cut them from the original interview. Editing interviews is not something we do lightly at a show called Uncensored, but like the proverbial cries of fire in a crowded theatre, there are legal limits on us too. We apologize to Jay Z and Beyonce.
So he was forced to apologize for that. And I've seen the video. I don't know if you've seen what Jaguar Wright was stating, but she was basically accusing him of being complicit with Diddy on things he was accused of, as well as she mentioned how he was behind the Surviving R. Kelly documentary. He funded Dream Hampton's thing. But regarding that legally, Judge, is there any protection when you have a guest on a show from saying something? Was Piers Morgan entitled to edit that interview?
All you do is make a disclaimer. This opinion stated by a guest do not reflect those of management, so to speak. And the other thing is New York Times versus Sullivan, 1962 U.S. Supreme Court. Certainly we're talking about public figures.
Right.
And they set forth a pretty high bar that has to be raised before somebody is liable for defamation of character, either libel or slander. Slander saying it, libel's writing it. So I don't think they raise that unless it's just maliciously done with no basis in fact or a mistake or whatever it may be. However, we're getting so delicate these days, and you know the far left is trying to wipe out the First Amendment. They say it gets in the way of democracy because it allows misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, you know. That means you didn't take social studies in junior high school and high school. You didn't get educated in college, and you are an ignorant fool stalking around the country. If you have a political office or you're in the public and you say get rid of the First Amendment because it gets in the way of democracy, meaning people's feelings might get hurt. Well, that's not how it works. I think they're being safe. The society has gotten more and more litigious, and the judges are getting less and less knowledgeable and depending more and more upon less knowledgeable law clerks rather than on their own acumen and experience.
I think they've become more, they rely on emotions now.
Yeah, feelings. You know what I found interesting? Statute of limitations. The statute of limitations that have been expanded, somebody can pinch somebody on the behind and there's a 25 or 50-year statute of limitations. But a wrongful death case involving a homicide, what is it, 2 years, 3 years maximum in some states?
Yeah.
A year
They just
in a lot
increased
of them.
it. They just increased it in Louisiana to 2 years with the torts, but it used to be 1 year.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah.
a killing is less serious than a butt pinch. You know, that makes no sense at all.
Yeah. I want to share with you this too, since we talked about Jaguar Wright and Diddy. He had a hearing today in court. I showed this video. I'll play part of it. Yeah, a lot of people aren't getting my notifications for some reason. Make sure y'all get them. But yeah, I wanted you to hear this from Fox 5. Hold on one second.
Developing at 5, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back inside a federal courtroom here in New York.
All right, a trial date's now been set for May 5th of next year. Lisa Evers live in Lower Manhattan with the very latest today. Lisa.
Well, Stephen, Natasha, this was Sean Diddy Combs' third time in the courthouse you see right behind me, his first time before a new judge. They did handle these calendar matters and also set that May 5th, 2025 date for the trial to begin. But what was most striking was that his mother, Janice Combs, who's been with him his whole life, flew up from Florida to be with him, as did most of his children, in a show of support.
And I'm wondering what's striking about it. That's what family does. When someone's in trouble, that's her son.
Sean Combs' son, Christian, known professionally as King Combs, held his grandmother's hand as they left the courthouse with his other siblings.
We want to hear from you. Anything you want to say at this point.
Judge Arun Subramanian acknowledged that his mother, Janice Combs, came from Florida for her son and that his kids also traveled to be in the same courtroom with him. Combs' attorney, Anthony Rico, sat by his side throughout the proceeding. He's handling the appeal of his bail denial, which is a separate case in the appeals court.
He's making an adjustment. He had his family here today to support him. We really want to put an end to all of the clowning that we see on the internet. This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences.
The judge set a trial date of May 5th, 2025. The lead federal prosecutor took issue with Combs' attorney Mark Agnefilo's extensive comments in a TMZ documentary, alleging the government was guilty of racial bias and targeting Combs. Agnifilo complained about government leaks to the media. The result was a mutual gag order.
I made a request for the judge to issue what we call the gag order, and the judge is going to issue it on a reciprocal basis. So I'm not going to say anything that I didn't say in my papers and in court.
Women's rights attorney Gloria Allred represents some of the accusers of Combs in civil cases and spoke outside the court.
It's challenging.
Who did I say was probably involved?
That's Gloria Allred.
Yeah, said she's probably involved, and she turns out to be. And remember what I was telling you about this situation? There's the outright issues of extortion. She always gets in like some people we know that have never tried a case that are recognized as noted civil rights attorneys around the country. And
Judge? Oh, they started. Judge is in the black. His phone went out, it looks like. We'll see if we can get him back in. Let me see if we can get the judge back in. Hold on. I'm going to text him.
You there?
All right, we're back. I can see the judge. Yeah, your camera went out.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're good.
All right.
Counselor, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you were talking about Gloria Allred?
Yeah, she and her daughter, they run a racket, which is allegedly they seek out cases to extort public figures. That's what you can call it. Or let's put it this way, to advance claims made by certain people that assert that they were done wrong, particularly when the wrong has occurred years and years in the past. I'll leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, I've heard from, I think it was from you, that she doesn't really practice law, like talking about it. She just puts her face on cases and move forward. But yeah, I had Tom Mesereau on my program once, and he told me stuff about her because he represented Mike Tyson in a case. Mike Tyson was accused of an assault back in 2000, and Gloria Allred was representing the woman. And Tom filed some motions and so forth. Gloria Allred eventually had to drop the case.
Yeah,
Mike Tyson wasn't there.
It's allegedly extortion from those that have had to go through it. In other words, how much money will you pay to defend yourself? How much is the value of the loss of reputation this will cause, whether it's true or not? And somewhere in there, a concession can be extorted in the gag order so nobody talks about what's going on. Now, the thing that's getting me, speaking of gag orders, back here in New York, the U.S. attorney gave an unprecedented press conference where he broke this whole thing down. And how long did he talk? About half hour, explaining how many times the defendant Diddy masturbated and how many tubes of lubricant he bought, which has nothing to do with the case at all, but it was inflammatory, prejudicial to selecting a fair jury. And now they want to get a gag order because somebody replied to what they did. It's poisonous. And you and I both know when you've got a federal criminal case, they'll say something like, between the following dates, the defendant did solicit women to be transported or to come across state lines for illicit purposes, and leave it at that. And you have to file motions and have hearing after hearing to find out anything besides what they put in the indictment. And ordinarily, you're just entitled to written statements of your client. You're not entitled to any witness statements. You're not entitled to any list of witnesses. You're not entitled to a theory of the case past what is necessary for the defendant to know what he's being tried for, which is still usually by ambush. And the restrictions and the lack of information are long, but in this case, they went for a half hour publishing this nonsense for the public just to inflame them, because essentially most of the stuff they were talking about was irrelevant. What was it, a 3-count indictment that went on for 14 pages?
It was like 14-page indictment, yeah, and
it was only 3 counts.
Yeah, 3 counts, racketeering. They had sex trafficking and
basically the sex trafficking translated into Mann Act. And when I represented defendants years ago, I used to have a lot of my pimp clients who got charged under the Mann Act because Memphis is located across the street, literally, from Mississippi, in P Valley, having had a real live antecedent down in Mississippi. Several places they take their ladies back and forth across state lines or over to West Memphis, Arkansas, and they would get hit with these Mann Act indictments by the feds when the feds wanted them to turn snitch on somebody of interest.
Yeah. And what you're saying too to that, Judge, because you and I read the law, know the law, and we read indictments. Most Americans aren't reading. They read a headline and go with it. They don't do research and know full details of stuff. So when you hear a district attorney do a press conference talking about Diddy and how much lube was found, making it seem like it was a big drug bust, that in of itself is not a criminal act. If you could buy as much lube as you want, he doesn't like to be ashy. Now I may not like the behavior, I don't, and I think he's a punk personally, but at the same time, do I think, you got Tony Busby, an attorney out of Houston, that says he's got 120 victims who are going to file lawsuits against Diddy. It seems like this, and Busby, to me, he was also the attorney in the Deshaun Watson stuff representing those women. So, to me, it comes off like all of this is about money because you're dealing with a multi-billionaire. Now, I look at that.
Talking about buzzards, and they're flocking to the dead bait the way they look at it.
Right. And I want to show something. I'm skipping through the video a little bit, but I want to share with you. This is just how I played this earlier, people on the street talking about.
And that could happen anytime within the next couple of weeks. We're live here in front of the courthouse. Let's check in with Teresa Priolo. She's been outside most of the day here. Teresa, what was it like out here?
There were so many people out here, Lisa. As you know, you were out here as well. P. Diddy is an international superstar, and so you have to imagine that this is a case that is bringing people from all over the world. We've seen local media here, national media, and yes, international media too, with also a huge showing among entertainment journalists. But we also saw today a lot of citizen journalists that were out here as well. People who grew up on Diddy's music, whose albums were the soundtrack of their lives, and they told me that they feel like they needed to come down here and to just catch a glimpse of it all. Of course, we know that Diddy remains behind bars at MDC, but that's not stopping the crowds or the interest in this case.
I'm studying forensic sciences, my big thing is women and children, to protect women and children. So when I heard all of this going down, it was, just the hair on my back just went up.
If he's doing things like this, he needs to be in jail. There's nothing. Diddy needs to go to jail if this is what he's about.
What is it? And my question, what is it that he did?
Yeah, point is at worst, he was being a pimp and a procurer for other people who wanted to go to these parties. The other thing is you notice how many times these women were supposed to have gone back and forth. Now, protect women, but at some point, I look at what the same crowd is saying about children 11, 12, 13, 14 years old can make life-altering decisions to be mutilated to achieve a facsimile of a gender change, which is impossible in reality. But yet women who are grown women are not to be held accountable for going back over and over to get advantage, money, or positional from sexual activity. They are not responsible according to this worldview, but the children are responsible enough to get mutilated. So it doesn't really fall into place. It's just got to do with bias. It's lack of consistency, and it's one of the problems that's going wrong with the law. There is no consistency, or at least not enough anymore. And it just bounces back and forth depending upon what your particular worldview is. Now, what they did not deal with is they're talking about sex parties. So the professionals that he is charged with procuring, they would be in one part of the mansion over in the corner or in the middle of the room putting on a show, and participants would be, or attendees would be invited to participate or be inspired and do their thing and walk from one area to the other, depending upon what they wanted to get into and how they got their freak on. What do we call them? Freak out, freak shows. And somehow or another, I keep thinking about Jack Johnson, that was the basis.
Black
for,
heavyweight champion.
Yeah. He had a white wife, and she and her friend girls would travel around the country with Jack Johnson, and some very racist people were very upset that this was going on, so they tried to get him. Now, when Jack Johnson became the first person arrested under what became the Mann Act, the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, had been created to investigate him to see what they could do to assist Congress to get the Mann Act together. And since they could not carry guns and essentially had no arrest power at the time, the FBI brought in the U.S. Marshals. And when Jack Johnson and his lawfully wedded wife cut across the corner of Georgia on a train, when they stopped, the FBI and the Marshals rushed the train, cuffed him up, took him into custody and tried him. He was convicted. He escaped, fled to Paris. His mother, being, I think, quite selfish, just wanted to see him one more time. So he tried to sneak back in the country. He got caught. He served his sentence, served the longer one for escape than he did for the offense in question. Got out and got killed in a car wreck in 1946, they say. Obama wouldn't pardon him, but Trump did. And I think people need to understand that though there is very little understanding of Jack Johnson today, he was kind of Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis all wrapped into one, and was a great inspiration to a lot of colored Negroes, African Americans, Afro Americans, Black folk at the time. And that's how the Mann Act came into play. Most recently, you saw it applied to R. Kelly. Now, frankly, I think the act is archaic. It's 113 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It deals with a morality that's long in the past, and it gives the prosecution too many options to use it to persecute someone for doing things that are not necessarily wrong in today's terms. Like, you don't have to pay the woman. You can transport your girlfriend or your wife across state lines, or ex-wife. Let's say you're trying to reconcile. That can be held to be a Mann Act violation because the language is transporting for, quote, illicit purposes, unquote. And that illicit is open to too much interpretation.
Right. It's open to too much interpretation. Who determines that? You know, we're talking about the 14th Amendment as well. You have a fundamental right to privacy. And if you're talking about and my thing with Diddy, and I'll wrap on Diddy with this, what's the difference between Diddy and Hugh Hefner with the sex parties that they had?
None at all. None at all.
And Hugh Hefner was praised.
Yeah. See what they're getting on. Oh, he beat that woman. Well, today, how often you say, yeah, man, it's about pimping, man, or hey, man, I pimped out my ride, man. Bottom line is that's what pimping looks like. What you saw was a routine thing in the pimp game, and it wasn't even really about pimping that thing in the elevator out in the hallway. There's another story to it. Anger, heat of passion, infidelity, all kinds of things.
Stealing.
I
had heard stealing. Someone took the clothes she had were his. She had money. That doesn't justify what he did, and by no means. And yes, that would be what he committed was a domestic abuse battery, which is a misdemeanor. As well as if he did have the video per se, and he purchased the video, that could be to hide it from law enforcement. That could be considered obstruction of justice.
Well,
but I mean, the hotel is closed, so and it's outside the statute of limitations, so they can't do anything about it. But yeah, I think, and this is a point too, Judge Cass.
Wait a minute. Why did they put that in this discussion that the U.S. attorney had in New York during this half-hour-long briefing? Why did they
their case?
Yeah, and mention it when it's irrelevant to the case.
Prejudice the public?
Yes. And by the way,
this
is the same U.S. attorney relative to the mayor of New York who put in that salacious mess. I've never seen an indictment with pictures in it. Have you?
Yeah, I saw it.
Have you ever seen an indictment before with pictures?
I have not.
No, I mean, I've been doing this for half a century. I never have. And that's most what I did. I did a lot of criminal trial work. I've never seen one with pictures. And they're not graphic pictures. It's just, look at this hotel that he stayed at, meaning the mayor. Look at this hotel room he stayed in. What are you trying to do? Is that to state the case so you can go to trial because the defendant is put on notice of the charges, or are you trying to accomplish something else? I think with the mayor's situation, he's supposed to be a sacrificial lamb. See, we're not just going after Donald Trump. We're going after the mayor. Oh, black Democratic mayor. Well, considering the vitriolic protest he's been undergoing lately because of his policies with the illegal alien border crashers, I guess they just said we can throw him to the dogs and see what happens. He doesn't count anymore.
Yeah. Judge, I want to move on. I just want to talk about something else too, since we're talking about Harris and a hurricane. I got to comment on this because this was brought to my attention over the weekend. I didn't get a chance to address it, but Magic Johnson is campaigning for, and I know you know Magic. He's campaigning. It's no secret he's a big Democrat. He's campaigning for Harris and Walz. And did you see the video?
Yes, I did.
Well, let me play it for everybody because a lot of people were clowning him because they're saying he's telling black men what to do and vote, but they mentioned his son, and everyone knows his son is EJ is homosexual. But I want to just play this.
We got to rally people, talk to them. Now, there's a lot of black men in here, and I don't mean to, not talk to other people, but this is important. Our black men, we got to get them out to vote. That's number one. Kamala's opponent promised a lot of things last time to the black community that he did not deliver on. And we got to make sure we help black men understand that. So that's why I'm here, to make sure I help black men understand. First, get out and vote, and then vote for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
So Magic is telling black men to go vote. And you had some people who were saying, you're telling us to vote, go vote, but you can't actually tell your son to be a man. They had some people who were saying that. And so now I'm not even worried about that, because, you know, that's their that's his son, whatever.
Well, yeah, I would say something. I would say something, but I've known the family for about 35 years. His mother and I are pretty good friends. As a matter of fact, I just heard from her a few weeks ago. We had a mutual friend. It was one of her best friends, a lady that died suddenly from cancer. So I don't want to really say anything about him. It's just a family thing, but no, I take issue with what he's saying. And I'd say the exact opposite. A good black man would never, no how, no way vote for Kamala Harris Imhoff. So I just don't agree with that.
Sure. Has he tried to get you to come on board the Democratic platform? Judge, you muted yourself. Did he take issue with you going on Kamala?
He hasn't said anything about it. I haven't talked to him in some years, but I talk to his mother regularly. She's a good person.
That's good. So his mom is still around.
Yes, he lost his father this year. I knew him too.
Yeah. Yes. His father was a garbage man, huh?
Father was a union man. He also worked up there in the factories.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I know you know Magic, so I won't.
It was Fisher Body, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
May be wrong about that. They were up in Lansing.
Somebody said, "Be careful, Judge. Don't drink after him." Y'all wrong. You're wrong for that book. That Spirit of Justice, you're wrong. I'll just say this much, Magic. I don't think Magic should talk about politics. That's my personal opinion. I don't like this vote shaming stuff that older black people tend to do. And when they try to get black people to vote, and you know this, Judge, most of the time they shame them. It's not just to vote, it's to vote their way. It's to vote Democrat. It's to vote blindly. And no tangibles, no promises of any kind. In fact, there's one video going around now. I just saw Barack Obama is back in the news trying to get people to go vote. So,
what? By the way, what did he do for black folk? And by the way, what has Biden Imhoff done for black folk?
Nothing.
I can't think of anything.
Oh, they gave money to HBCUs.
No, they didn't, because they cut by 2/3, 3/4 what Trump had discretionarily allocated to them. So they cut back on it.
Well,
I don't call that giving.
Well, he didn't do anything. Barack Obama specifically did nothing for black men or black people. The My Brother's Keepers initiative they talk about, that was for men of color. That could have applied to anybody, Indian, Hispanic. But he's speaking here. This is out in East Liberty. I think this is up in, this got to be around Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. So listen carefully.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of
Judge, you off screen again.
And turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all.
I'm going to go outside.
Say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences. Who's had to work harder and do more and overcome and achieves the second highest office in the land.
So you heard that its choice is clear. You have someone who knows you, understands you. You saw that?
I was listening.
This is the one. This is the person he's talking about.
Do you support reparations for this? Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
That's who he's talking about.
The witch. Take the W off, put the B on. Yeah. Yeah.
He did nothing for Black men. He actually talked down when he spoke out.
You aren't Black if you don't vote for me. Well,
That
I'm
was
Black.
Biden. But what Barack Obama did, he was speaking as the commencement speaker out in Clark, Atlanta, and he gave Black men like a very finger-wagging Bill Cosby speech, like the pound cake speech. But I can say this at least with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby did more in his 88 years for Black people than Barack Obama did in 8 years as president. And I'm confident on saying that.
Hell, you probably have too.
Yeah, Barack Obama said very little about how Black men were treated unfairly in this country. The only time he spoke really and opened his heart was when Trayvon Martin was killed. That was it. But
what did he do? What did he say that was so particularly impressive about that?
Well, he spoke and gave a press conference after the verdict, just talking about his experience as a Black man, and if he had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And I forget that after he made that speech, there were some presidential historians who spoke on the radio, and he said he was very surprised President Obama spoke on race because he's one of the few presidents who actually talked about it. He never really talked on race in this country. And, he had to, and I think he didn't do that. He was probably scared of the stereotypical stigma of the angry Black man, but he really did virtually little. And, we needed somebody like Maynard Jackson or Dutch Morial that was going to stand up, because when you're the first, yeah, you are going to encounter trials and tribulations. That's part of life, but you got to go and do something too. Maynard did stuff for Atlanta. As you know, Judge, he built that airport. He made sure there was minorities that got contract. Black people.
A very few
what?
Black folk got involved in that, mostly friends and acquaintances of his. The money didn't go as far as it could have been, and Atlanta is still suffering from the imbalance way down here and a few up there. I was just there last weekend.
Yeah. Well, Atlanta, they said Atlanta is the Black Mecca. That has changed, huh?
No, it's not the Black Mecca. You go around the Clark, Morehouse campus, and some of the students are afraid to leave campus because of the gangster activity that's going on around there. You've got a great expanse of territory, a lot going on, but it's not so much Black as it is rainbow.
Yeah, that's true. His rainbow is taking over Atlanta. It's not what it. It's not. Yeah, especially when Kasim Reed was there as the mayor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a failure of modern leadership. It's just they don't have people that know how to lead. They have people that are weak administrators, people who don't even necessarily talk a good game. They just go with the flow and do what they're told.
Yeah.
And they get wealthy and they feel they are entitled to the benefits of skimming from the public trough a bit.
Right. To go back to the hurricane, because I guess I want to talk with you about your response. This was on the, I'm going to show General Russell Honore because he was talking about DeSantis and DeSantis saying that he didn't need to speak to Harris. And so this is my first time seeing it. Of course, it's CNN. So I know you're probably not going to like it, but fair use, everyone. So this is my first time hearing it. So I'm interested in hearing what General Honore has to say.
Website set up. It's dedicated to addressing all of the false information, all of the rumors. I do wonder, what kind of impact have you seen this all have on the federal response?
Well, I think from my experience in Katrina, the targeted people are the survivors, and many of them don't have electricity, don't have media. But with current cell phones and as the internet come back online to have access, it's demoralizing. And then that rumor gets spread. You know, we dealt with that in Katrina too, Laura. There were rumors of the government blowing levees and snipers, and you have to immediately engage with it through the media at large, as well as the great tactic that FEMA is using it with the help of CNN and others who challenge those rumors and lies before they become a problem in the community.
Those weren't rumors. Many people had heard that. Many people I spoke to, General Honore, said they heard the levees blown up. And in New Orleans, that's happened before. There were people, I can tell you, because it's documented, that got shot at after Katrina. They had the damn Crescent City Connection Bridge. They had the police departments from Gretna actually hold guns and prevent people from fleeing. But
well, History Channel did one a few years ago about a heroic former Marine who imposed safety on a rooftop from some gang to protect the people up there from some gangsters who were trying to exploit them and were threatening to do them some severe harm. So, I mean, yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's happened. So,
what do you think? Speaking
about the devastation of like a
Trump commercial where they have the trans freak that's a general in the U.S. military, and he contrasts that with what he's pushing about love and free spirit. And he flashes to, what is it? Remember Full Metal Jacket with Gunny, who used to have the TV series on where they talk about weaponry.
Mail call.
What's that?
Mail call.
Yeah, mail call. They had him in that part with Full Metal Jacket. He was a Marine gunny sergeant for real.
Yeah,
and
Lee Army.
Commercial. Yeah, Lee Army. Yeah.
Right.
And the commercial contrast him with what the current general is doing in the dress, who's not supposed to be in the dress.
I haven't seen the commercial, but there's actually
it's kind of funny.
There's an actual general in a military dress.
Yeah, we have, I think, 3 generals in the U.S. military who are trannies.
Oh. Well, let me finish this video. Hold on.
Katrina and beyond, and of course now, how do you combat that when it's difficult to even have people access their cell phones, their loved ones? That rumor mill could be out of your control. How do you address that misinformation on the ground?
Well, the governors need to have daily news conference with FEMA, with the National Guard. That is a routine, and there need to be a national news conference because it not only affected people, the survivors, it affected mood of the country and people confidence that the government is doing what they can to help people. But in a disaster, you're never there on time. You get there when you can because the disaster had an impact on airports, roads, communications, water accessibility, and you got to get people evacuated. So that's a disaster. If people are not complaining in a disaster, it wasn't a disaster, it was inconvenience. And boy, did we have a big one with Helena. It was 600 miles long, affected 5 states. I've never seen one that big before, Laura.
You know, you make such a sharp point on the idea of what it does to the confidence in the government and the ability for people to have faith in the response, and then maybe even heed the warnings from the government about what to do with a future hurricane. How would you assess FEMA's response so far, specifically in places like North Carolina, where, I mean, we see these images, they are devastating.
We got to understand FEMA's role is to resource things that the governor needs. The governor hands his request to FEMA, and FEMA brings generators. They bring search and rescue teams. And if they need to, they will ask the Pentagon to bring more helicopters and troops. But the person in charge of the disaster preparedness and response is the governor. And FEMA's there to assist him with logistics. It's news conference before the hurricane and tell people to evacuate, but it's logistics, and that's what FEMA brings to include the entire Department of Defense if needed.
Thank you. I'm just thinking about what needs to be done in the scope of this. And I couldn't believe when I saw this, Lieutenant General, because the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, and President Biden, they did speak by phone tonight. But then a White House official told us that DeSantis has not returned Vice President Harris's calls. Harris called that selfish. DeSantis tonight said this in response.
She has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the president of the United States. I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign.
What do you make of this back and forth? Do you think that Governor DeSantis is accurate or woefully misguided?
I think this is a case of misguided that he could turn it into a talking point. But the vice president was decisively engaged in Katrina and would send in requests for information because they're hearing from constituents too inside that state. So they're a part of the government, the vice president. They need to know everything the president knows and to be there to assist the governor as he needs something. So I think that we need to move past this because this storm that's coming is going to be historic. Helena was a monster. This could be a historic storm facing over 3.5 million people. The elevation 10 feet in Tampa, 9 feet in St. Pete at best, and it could get 10 to 12 foot surge. So we need to focus on this storm, and hopefully that story will go away. And tomorrow we can focus on preparing and getting the logistics ready to respond because we're going to need air, we're going to need land, and we're going to need sea search and rescue to be able to assist if this storm comes in the way the weather people are talking about it, Laura.
So Lieutenant General Honore is saying DeSantis was misinformed about the vice president being involved.
She needs to keep her tacky ass out of the way.
I couldn't hear you, Judge. You broke up.
She needs to keep her tacky behind out of the way.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is, what is this focus on misinformation? What station was this?
That was CNN.
You know what CNN did that I'm personally aware of? I was in Jamaica with my ex-wife when they had a huge hurricane. CNN was going around spreading all of this false information that all of the people were going to die. The island was going to be under 3 feet of water. And the Jamaicans go, hey, man, the wind blow, man. It happen all the time. So my ex and I stayed at the resort. We had a great time. It was exciting watching everything blow around, but they had the facilities to resist it. Nobody got washed away, but CNN was trying to give the impression that half the island was going to get drowned, and it was complete garbage. So now they're worried about misinformation. In other words, they're trying to encourage the public to get accustomed, acclimated to this term misinformation, because 90 years ago, in 1934, the Nazis were doing the same thing, talking about misinformation, using Deutsch to express it. So they came up with a misinformation bureau that was operated by the Gestapo. So that's where we're going with this. You've heard,
and Tim Walz has talked about that.
Suppressing the First Amendment to ensure democracy.
Yeah. Tim Walz did that, talking about getting rid of censoring disinformation, that it's not protected speech, even though the Supreme Court has said protected speech is the speech that nobody likes. It's the most hated form. And when you hear Justice General Honore, I just want your opinion. He says the vice president played a role with Katrina. That was Dick Cheney. Cheney was the one running that White House. And
Cheney had been CEO of Halliburton. Dick Cheney and George W. Bush were cousins. They were both, Dick Cheney was nephew to George Herbert Walker, and George W. Bush, George Walker Bush, was great nephew to Herbie Walker.
Right.
So,
I thought,
also interestingly enough, Uncle Herbie to George Herbert Walker Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush and Dick Cheney were first cousins. Also a first cousin of George Herbert Walker and Dick Cheney is or was Barack Obama's maternal grandfather.
I thought that I never heard Dick Cheney and George Bush being related, but I know
They are. Look up Samuel Hinckley. They'll put it, they've got it in there clear. It's in Wikipedia in several places. They haven't wiped it out yet. But Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, and Barack Obama, and also Sarah Palin, governor of Alaska, were all cousins. So I find it interesting that Barack Obama was campaigning against his cousin, who was the running mate of John McCain.
Yeah, Obama and Bush are 10th cousins.
What's that?
Obama and President Bush, both President Bush and President Obama are 10th. Looks like they say they're 10th cousins removed.
They're not 10th. They're closer than that. Obama's grandfather is George Herbert Walker Bush's first cousin.
Okay, I'm just quoting the Guardian article.
Forget the Guardian. Look up articles on Samuel Hinckley, Hinkley, late of Cape Cod.
Yeah. They say Bill Clinton is related to, Obama's related to Brad Pitt and Hillary Clinton, to his partner, Angelina Jolie. Yeah, so.
Well, Brad Pitt would have to be related to Angela Jolie. What is this, cousins marrying cousins or something?
Well, it says Obama's related to Brad Pitt and Hillary Clinton, to his partner, Angelina Jolie.
Well, I don't know about
John McCain is related, has claimed to be related to Robert the Bruce, but they say they debunked that. That was
my ex-wife was a lineal descendant of Robert the Bruce, King of Scotland. In fact, they used to have on that side, she was part black and her mother was Scotch-Irish, and they were descended from Robert the Bruce. So I've seen all of the English, charts on that, no question. So there are a lot of people. Robertson's, son of Robert. If you got a name like that, you have some kind of claimed relationship to Robert the Bruce, King of Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah, Barack Obama and Brad Pitt, related. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think all but one president, someone did, I saw this before, all but one president was related, all of them were related to each other. I can't think of who the one president was. But
I don't know about that, but you've got a history. Adams and Adams, father and son president. You've got Roosevelt and Roosevelt, one the uncle and the other the nephew. You've got the Kennedys, you've got the Bushes, you've got a lot of people in here that are related. It runs in families, and a lot of people are unaware of this.
Right.
Barack Obama, he grew up in a compound owned by one of the richest men on the planet Earth, whose operational name was Lolo Soetoro. That's why you have Barry Soetoro, because he got adopted. And Daddy Soetoro also ran the death squads for the Indonesian government that handled the 59, 60, and 61 abortive coup that was attempted. So I think at one time they wanted Lolo Soetoro from The Hague for mass murder to the tune of 500,000 people. But I think the U.S. government blocked that because Sotoro was supplying intelligence from North Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, North Korea, the People's Republic of China, and Indonesia, and the Nam was going on at the time. So yeah.
Yeah. Lolo Sotero. I got Sotoro. I want to point this out.
It's an operational name. Soetoro or Soretoro. It's spelled different ways. That's not his real name, but that's the one he worked under. He was also international vice president for Standard Oil. So he dealt with George Herbert Walker Bush, who came up with Zapata Offshore Oil, which was a holding company for Zapata Oil and some of the family interests that were financed by George Herbert Walker, who founded Halliburton in 1946 in Oklahoma. It had originally been chartered in 1919, same state, but it went belly up and he revitalized it. So they did a lot of business together. And Mama decided to help things out. She hooked her daughter up with Lolo Sotoro, and that worked out well for the family business.
The trust fund you talk about too.
Well, yeah, but the family business, Bush too. Bush also, the Bush family had been supplying intelligence information along with access to financing, and they were doing what they call paper entrepreneurialism. They've been doing that for 100-some years. One of the Bushes who operated a foundry not far from Detroit, he got recognized by Rockefeller and Carnegie, and they propped him up and they made him CEO or president of a consortium of German arms manufacturers that the two of them acquired after World War I. And it's interesting that they were getting a check from German heavy industry all through World War II.
Or profited.
Now, George Herbert Walker excelled. He was team captain of the football team, the baseball team. He was class valedictorian. He became the youngest combat pilot in World War II for the Americans. He got shot down when he was 19 years old by the Japanese when he was piloting a torpedo bomber. Two of the crew, three-man crew on the TBF got killed. He almost got captured by a rather crazy Japanese colonel who ran a prison camp on the island, and he liked to have strange sake parties where he would kill the American prisoners, cut their livers out, and barbecue, serve them with sake. That was on Iwo Jima, not Iwo Jima. So they named an aircraft carrier after him.
Yeah, I've heard that story. There were cannibals on that island.
Yeah, and they were Japanese military that were trying to do an ancient Bushido thing. Interestingly enough, when he got to Yale, he made valedictorian, not valedictorian, he made magna cum laude, and he graduated.
Do you have comments, sir? Why do you think Trump is? Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation?
I don't know. I simply don't know. You can speculate, but I just find it. I've used the phrase more than I've used it ever in my whole career. Un-American.
Is this Mr. Trailer, this urban trailer park trash, Mr. Urban Trailer Park Trash here?
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, I was getting ready for this video, and then when I try to stop it, it's going forward.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, you will want to finish your last sentence?
Oh no, that's all right. We'll
Okay.
watch the clown show here.
Oh, gee. So I want to show everybody. I played this earlier, but in this video, Judge, I don't know if you saw this, but he was defending Ron DeSantis. Did you see that earlier?
I don't think he likes Kamala after Kamala helped him.
Former President Trump has. Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation? Why do you think former President Trump has spreading misinformation?
These are reporters asking him multiple. He looks confused.
Do you have a comment, sir? Why do you think Trump is?
He wants to go out
Why do
in
you think Trump
peace.
is spreading misinformation?
I don't know. I simply don't know. You can speculate, but I just find it, I've used the phrase more than I've used it ever in my whole career, un-American. It's un-American. It's not who the hell we are. What are they talking about?
Sir, have you considered calling him and asking him to stop doing that? To stop doing that?
Oh, come on.
Mr. President, does Governor DeSantis need to take Vice President Harris's calls?
All I can tell you is I'm talking to Governor DeSantis. He's been very gracious. He's thanked me for all we've done. He knows what we're doing, and I think that's important.
So he defended DeSantis, and you heard what General Honoré was saying. I wanted to know what your opinion both on General Honoré when he said he was missing an opportunity. I guess essentially missing an opportunity with the vice president, and saying the vice president was very involved. I listened carefully to what he's saying, but he thinks it's misinformation that the vice president shouldn't be involved in that. You agreed with him?
Not this one. This one has turned everything she's been involved into a disaster. Look at the $42 billion boondoggle that was supposed to bring internet to the rural areas of America. Look at the fiasco she created when she was delegated the authority to be the diplomatic chief in Europe because Biden couldn't go over there. He had pending felony warrants against him in Ukraine. Look at Bordazar. What in the hell is going on down there? These criminals crashing over the border. And by the way, you know what I think they're doing?
What's that?
Under American law, the president can issue a blanket pardon of everybody who's crashed the border. And since he's chief diplomat, he can also issue a retroactive order granting asylum to people who say came in starting 3 years ago. And the interesting thing is under American laws that currently exist, if you get granted asylum, political asylum, as a refugee from a foreign country, you automatically get citizenship in 5 years. If that's what she winds up or intends to do, if by some unholy chance she got in, then these illegals would automatically be able to vote, and they could vote where they live for the midterm elections, which would occur 2027. And you will notice they're being stuffed into so-called battleground states that are critical.
Well, I know this much too. They're fast tracking citizenship this year. The Biden the administration, they fast track.
They shouldn't, because they need to learn the culture. They need to learn the politics. They need to learn the form of government. They need to learn the law. They need to learn about what this country is supposed to be about, even if it doesn't achieve that supposed all the time. So I don't think any corner should be cut. I do not think somebody should be rewarded for breaking the law. You've got numerous felons who've been released from South American prisons and hustled up here. You've got people from the Middle East, from Africa. You've got Chinese who took a plane over to somewhere immediately south of Mexico and came up across the border. You should not do that. That is just absolutely preposterous. You haven't vetted them for medical conditions, for mental health conditions, for employability. What the hell are you doing here? And the other thing is they're getting sent to these battleground states, so the census that will be taken next will show an increase in the population, which will result in them getting extra representation in the House, or at least not losing any. Real insidious. And then they had the nerve to talk about they needed to supplement the workforce because there was a labor shortage. That's why, I've been talking about one of the reasons they have penitentiaries. The penitentiaries are to store the surplus labor. It's a people warehouse. They don't want them to work because they don't have enough jobs to go around.
Yeah. And you saw that video with Biden with DeSantis. He praised him. Yeah, he doesn't have I guess he doesn't have to talk to Kamala Harris if he doesn't want to.
No.
He's not vice president. Yeah.
She doesn't come offering assistance.
Yeah.
There's nothing she has in hand.
Yeah. And I showed.
Go ahead.
I showed everyone earlier too a report from DHS, from the Inspector General for the Department of Homeland Security. If you remember, Mayorkas stated that they didn't have any money, and they're talking about this misinformation. But in the link that I shared with everyone, there was from the New York Post. They had the link. They had over $7 billion. That's the link there in untapped funds that they found that they could actually use.
But they're not. They're going to use them for these illegal border crashing criminals.
Right. And
by the way, damn the humanitarian aspect. What do they say when you get on board an airplane? If oxygen masks fall in front of you from the ceiling, put yours on first so you can stay conscious and help somebody. Look to yourself first. We have enough problems besides the ones we just imported. Need to send them all back from where they came from.
You feel that way?
Yeah. Or lock them up. Use them for hard labor. There are some reforestation projects. Kamala used to do this to prisoners whose time was up in California, keep them to fight forest fires. You have all of these natural disasters. Watch them closely so they don't steal. Shoot a few of them that are looting, and let them clean up after Katrina. Put them to work. Not Katrina, the storms down there in Florida and North Carolina.
Helene and Milton.
Helene and Milton.
Yeah. This is actually, so I got this right here, the programs. Yeah, $7 billion in unliquidated funds that could be returned to the disaster relief fund. This is from the Office of Inspector General. And at he's talking about FEMA, they said there were 79 disaster declarations, and they identified 26 programs with nearly $9.4 million in unliquidated funds. Now, they could return that money and give that. Of course, I've showed you Mayorkas, though, did a press conference saying they're spreading misinformation. People are not just getting $750. They mentioned that misinformation. Is it misinformation, or is it true that it's just not something that you want?
She said $750 out of her own mouth. And then they started jumping on much misinformation. So what's the source? And the problem is they've been, Hatch Act. Hatch Act, most people have heard of it because it forbids politicking by government employees. There's another part of it too that prohibits the use of funds allocated for one purpose for another purpose. And that's criminal. So they've been violating this. So I guess they're covering their behinds. Hey, I don't want to get one of these. I get thrown under the bus indictment situation. I'm going to have to go check out and do a couple of things and get ready for Miss Dana. So
Right.
Hey,
I know you gotta run, Judge. Before you run, this is going to be a brief clip. I just want to play this because we talk about this hurricane response. This is the last thing. Someone called into the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne, your favorite radio host, and I just want you to hear what they had to say about the hurricane relief efforts.
It's topic time. Call 800-585-1051 to join into the discussion with the Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Just Hilarious, Charlemagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club.
I'm listening. Go ahead. You froze up.
All right, I got kicked out, Judge. Yeah, they messing with me. Judge is in the black. I was just gonna play this video, this clip from the Breakfast Club. All right, I don't know if I can get Judge back. I know he goes back on with Dana, but I want y'all to hear. This is the frustration that many people have with the government. But Charlemagne gave Donkey of the Day to DeSantis, which isn't surprising. You know, the Breakfast Club, they're basically, their whole thing is pro-Democrat. Now, like again, I said, I'm not a fan of DeSantis. Maybe he deserves it. But we know Charlemagne, they ain't going to criticize Joe Biden or Kamala Harris like talking about it. But listen carefully to what this guy, Tone, had to say about what he thinks about the response.
$10,000 food stamps, bro. Goddamn $5,000 cash stipends, man. This shit hurting, bro. We better get ready to damn near die, bro. A lot of people couldn't afford to evacuate. And this government planning our face, man. It don't matter what they is, Democrat, Republican, they all treason, man.
You're absolutely right, my
brother.
brother.
Man.
Now we just open up the phone lines and we just want to hear what you have to say. Hello, who's this? Hey, Fiji. It sounds like you got us on speaker or Bluetooth. Can you take us off right fast, bro?
Yeah, hold on. Hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, brother.
I wanted to ask Charlemagne, at what point are we gonna keep the same energy with Kamala?
Kamala, talk to me. What happened?
I'm here to say that didn't take your phone call because it's the first time before that I ordered the natural disasters he dealt with. So he's questioning why is she calling now? And she's the one trying to criticize her campaign.
If you're, I was going to say, if your family was down there in the Ida storm, would you care if this was her first, second, or whatever time calling? Like, in all honesty, take your political beliefs out of it. Would you care about that?
All right.
Would you just want them to get the help?
Honestly, yeah, but in all honesty, if Ryan State is going to handle all the natural disasters by himself without her help, what is she offering now?
Well, that's FEMA, and that's not true either. But that's another that's more misinformation. But let's be clear about something. President Biden is no longer at the wheel. Can we just be honest about that for once? You know what I'm saying? President Biden is no longer.
He was never at the wheel to begin with. He was never at the wheel to begin with. And Charlemagne knows that. He told Charlemagne, you don't vote for him, you ain't black. He said that to Charlemagne's face. He let him get away with that. And to the point, Larry Elder, and I can't stand Larry Elder, but Larry Elder even called him out. But let's finish.
But that's my point. So she's the acting vice president running to be president. I would expect her to be the one to call. That's just the reality of the situation. But my point is, if I'm Governor Ron DeSantis, why does it matter? If she was not running for president, do you think he would be on TV saying that she's trying to make this political?
Hello, who's this?
This is Mac from Detroit. What up, though?
Mac, what up, though? What's up? Talk to us, Mac.
What up, though? I keep hearing Charlamagne talk about people from the hood, urban area, ghetto, whatever. We don't care about politics, but we do. You know what I'm saying? It does matter to us, not just about our pockets and stuff like that, but our way of living, our life. I think ever since Trump been in office, since he been running, we never had so much hate and division in the world. We never seen like KKK, MAGA, all that marching. We know it's the difference between parties and things like that.
I think you misunderstood me, brother. I said that when it comes to something like Hurricane Milton, when people are worried about survival,
going through that.
Yes, he's not thinking about a political party in this moment. That's what I'm talking about.
Family and saving himself.
I thought I was clear on that, but maybe I wasn't.
No, you said people in urban areas, those and all that. We look at like you don't care because you made it out of the ghetto. You might be doing this, but we be hoping a guy like you that has a voice will speak for us, especially black men for black men, instead of look at us like we don't exist.
Oh, no. Okay, I see what you're saying now. No, what I said was when they come to me and they have these conversations about black men and why black men aren't engaged in the political process, or they say things to me like black men are gravitating towards Trump, what I say to them is, no, it's not about party. People have just seen a system, either regardless of what the party is, who's constantly kicked them in their ass. So
I agree with that. I agree with him on that part. Yes, this system, this party, whether it's Democrat or Republican, they've all let the American people down. The Congress approval rating is even as low as the president's approval rating, if not lower. And what you have are basically people who look out for each other. Power does what it wants. It could be Republican, Democrat, whatever. Power does what it wants to do. When they make a decision, they do it. When Bush wanted to go into Iraq and not just stay in Afghanistan, he wanted to know about Iraq being involved with 9/11. He didn't care about war crimes. He didn't care about evidence. He wanted Iraq for a reason. He did what he wanted. And Congress was too chicken shit to actually stand up to him and say, no, you can't do that. We declare war. Congress it's in the articles. It's in the articles of the Constitution. Congress is the only one that makes a declaration of war. Now, presidents find a way to get around it. They do resolutions and so forth, like the Iraqi resolution, the Gulf War that they called. That was actually was war, but it was Iraq Part 1. They did an operation, and they were trying to get that oil. The movie W, which is about George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, they showed Richard Dreyfuss was playing Dick Cheney, but they showed basically what they were trying to do. He broke down whoever controls this area, this region of land, controls all of the oil, the largest oil supply in the world. It's always been about money. They don't care. But we know Charlamagne, of course, because they get that. They're there for the Democrats. They don't ever criticize Kamala Harris about stuff she said. They don't criticize Joe Biden. They don't criticize Pelosi. Of course, he was going to give that to Satan.
So they might just be disconnected from the whole process. But you're saying that they're not.
Right. We got Gloria on the line. Gloria, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, guys?
We're doing well, Gloria. How you feeling? I know you're a truck driver right now, right?
Yeah, I'm a truck driver, and I was telling the young man, my run consists of going to Asheville, Henderson, Irwin, Tennessee, and ever since this hurricane hit, it's been devastating. I know you guys see it on Instagram, the viral clips. Mm-hmm. But if you physically go out there and see the devastation that's out there, it is so sad.
Yeah.
Just this Saturday, I was in Spartanburg, because I'm stationed here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Spartanburg have no lights still since this Saturday, and it's been 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
People sleeping on their porch.
Yeah.
Outside on their porch because they have.
I think DeSantis has this point. With all of the hurricane season started, I'll just say this, in June. So we're in October. Did Kamala Harris reach out to all the governors of the states? Of course, she reach out to the one here in Louisiana that struck? Now, we didn't have that much damage. It was a Cat 2. The hurricane that that struck New Orleans directly, that was a Cat 2 storm. We survived that. But the other storm, Helene, that took out flooded Georgia and North Carolina. What did she say about that in other parts of Alabama? Did she call those governors? Did she call the governor of Georgia? Did she call the governor of North Carolina? Y'all think she reached out to them before this storm hit? Hell no. They don't even talk about it if she did. NBC's reporting this. So there's some point to it. But of course, you're not going to hear it straight from him. I can't play anymore. He communicated with Biden. Of course, there's politics that's involved with stuff. It's involved every day. But y'all tell me what y'all think. We're going to wrap this up. We've been on for almost 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's been a hot one. I've enjoyed this conversation with y'all. Make sure you smash up the likes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the Honorable Judge Joe Brown for coming on. Dana texted me asking the judge to get off, but he got off already because he had to go on her show. So I want to actually jump on there and say hello to them. But y'all leave something in the comments. Hit that notification bell. And I'll put the link to the books in the description box, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I do have the donation ticker if anybody wants to give something, but you love me for my time. You can pay me for my time. But I'm going to get up out of here. Thank you, Catalina. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, and I'm going to do this now posing to please spirit of justice there. All right, Catalina. All right, y'all. Y'all be safe. Be one, be blessed, and be safe. All right? Peace. There goes the balloons.